Mark Kris from Memorial Sloan Kettering. Speaking about a letter to the editor in the New England Journal of Medicine in the paper edition on January 25th, 2024. In this paper, three investigators from the Netherlands, Dr. Dingemans, Dr. Smit, and Dr. Hendriks, make a point about a paper that appeared in the fall of 2023 about the use of selpercatinib and a randomized trial comparing selpercatinib to chemotherapy. They make the point that the benefits in the phase 2 studies for selpercatinib far exceeded what you could expect from chemotherapy. The time to the response rate with selpercatinib in this lung cancer population with RET fusions was 85%, 84%, and the progression-free survival was 22 months. Really outstanding values, and there's no chemotherapy regimen with or without an ICI that would get close to that. Despite that, a randomized trial was done, and the authors raised the question: was there equipoise in doing this, and was this an ethical trial? I don't want to get into that aspect of it, but I do want to get into it. The need to rethink how our trials are done for these highly efficacious medications that have more broad use and have a good safety data. And as you know, selpercatinib is used in other cancers as well, and there was safety data available there, but with a very, very clear benefit in the phase 2 setting. And I have to say, in the past, our regulators, and I'll talk now about the Food and Drug Administration in their approval of crizotinib, that basically they approved for crizotinib with any line of therapy based on approximately 250 patients. And they did that because there was such a clear benefit to any other treatment that was out there. And they thought about that in a very, very clever way. They put patients first, and they put this drug out there. Now, we can argue why these randomized trials are done, but the truth is they're done because investigators like myself put patients on these trials. We agree to do these trials. But I reach out to you, everyone, to think about when there are very dramatic differences between the two treatment arms, that you have to be really circumspect, and you really have to ask the question: is this trial necessary to be done to give us the information we need in prescribing this? It's kind of interesting. The response rate in phase 2 and phase 3 of these two trials was identical, and the progression-free survival was nearly identical. I think it was 22 versus 25 months. So you have to wonder what the years of effort and expense of this randomized trial really got us. We need to think differently about drugs. Now, why is this drug so different? You had a target that we could really accurately measure. You know, it was a DNA-based target. We can measure it very, very well. Positive tests are always positive. And we had a highly efficacious drug against the mutant kinase brought on by that fusion protein. So it's a little different than comparing two different chemotherapy drugs, for example. So in summary, I think we need to look very, very critically at how we design trials for patients that are where we're testing drugs that have very, very clear evidence of benefit. I'm fond to remind people, I don't think there ever was a randomized trial showing that cisplatin was an effective drug for the treatment of testicular cancer. Why? Because it was so clear that it worked. And I do believe there are situations where it's worked. Yes, you have to clearly define it. Yes, the benefit has to be very, very clear. I'd put out as a rule of thumb, you need at least a 50% response rate to even think that this kind of a strategy should be sufficient for getting drugs approved. But when you have that, you really need to think about a different way to streamline it, to get it into the pharmacies around the world, and to not put people at risk. Yes, a crossover result is fine. A crossover design is helpful. Staggered 2-to-1 randomization is fine. However, it still means that people are exposed probably unnecessarily in my mind for these very specific situations. I'm not saying that everything should be done like this, but where you have a highly active drug, target, a very clear story, it can be done. And I'll say the crizotinib story, it got that drug approved right away, made it available, and really helped a lot of patients. And it's because a lot of thinking went into that, and I urge that we do that again. I thank the Dutch authors for writing that letter. I think it makes us all think about how we do our job and how we can do a better job.